Well, it's a time for another video. This is Athena Jezik. I thought I would work a little bit on the shoulders and explain a little bit more about these shoulders, the way that they're positioned and how they round forward and what the scapula needs to do. And also getting into the clavicle work, the sternoclavicular joint, which has a lot to do with alignment, especially of the rib cage, and just working around the upper part of the chest. There's a lot of things that are missed through here. Not much is massaged through this area. So we're going to work a little bit on this. So the muscles work in an antagonist and protagonist. That's what they call it. So they're opposite. They do the opposite of each other. And so that would only stand to reason that if the back is rounding forward, that's going to affect things in the front of the body as well as the muscles. And so this is a little bit that I want to address to you. Some of the techniques will be shown in the foundational class, designed to give you deeper technique, capacity, and understanding. So right now I'm just kind of feeling what's going on with her neck, with Karina's neck. And remember how we started. If you remember the back one, we just pull, and we're going to do the same kind of pull here. And you can also, there's no crepitus because we have worked that out. Well, there's a little bit, but it's a different position, and it does feel, oh, it's very small, very small. It's not anything to, when the crepitus is bad, it's really big. You can really feel it, but this is just a little rumbling. I think it's already beginning to unwind itself because it's so much different than the earlier time we worked on it. So I'm just getting a feel for that. And then I like to also feel for the neck, where I'm just pulling up, not on the vertebrae, but either side of the vertebrae. So you need to be aware. You really don't want to be on that vertebrae. Just, beside it or in between it is much better. And now, before I get started anymore, I'm going to put a little tiny bit of oil across the upper ribs, sternum, and along here. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the cat meowing. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've noticed, what I've learned about the alignment from the front. So I'm just going along the clavicles here. I'm just going to feel, because there's muscles that attach to this, and it is a little bit bumpy. It's not real smooth like it should be, but it's not bad. There's a real thin muscle layer called the platysma that goes up into the neck and down into the upper chest, actually along the clavicles. And then I'm getting right here into the sternum, and there at the sternum, you feel the sternum is about here, and then there's the ribs that come into that. So you can go along the bone to along the sternum, and then you'll go into the intercostal muscles and just kind of get a sense for that. So the sternum is here, and then the clavicles are here, and there's a little joint called the sternoclavicular junction. And actually, this is the only place that this entire shoulder girdle is attached to the body. The rest of it is all held through muscles. So that's one of the reasons I think, it's my opinion on this, of why it's so easy to just round forward. That and gravity, and we just kind of collapse in the center. But I guess the bones get pretty heavy, and it's just held there, and if the muscles aren't strong enough, we tend to round a little bit more forward. But a lot of the action that we do every day, eating or writing or at the computer, we're leaning a little more forward. So that's probably the main culprit. So I'm going to take this, now this goes up, and then there's another little joint, the acromion, a clavicular joint, and that's where we're leading into the arms. And so, you know, when you find where that is. Now this part, I have discovered over time that this joint also needs to be in an alignment, and that's because of the back. And you know, if the shoulders are crooked at all from these two joints right here, this little process going on, then that's going to throw things off in the back as well. I don't know anybody that has mentioned that before, but I'm sure that people have, but I haven't. It's not being mentioned very often if people are thinking about it. So I'm just going around this, coming up into the neck as well. Now the neck, then this is the sternocleidomastoid muscle, because it's attached into the mastoid bone, which is this bone. You can check an anatomy book on that, but it's the bone behind the ear. And you can go into that muscle pretty well, but you want to remember that you have very important veins and arteries through the neck. You have other very delicate structures. So you want to make sure that you're grabbing the muscle itself and getting a hold of just the muscle, and then you can work the muscle in a kind of a pinching way. There I'm on the muscle, and some muscles are a little more pronounced than others, but there I'm just working on that muscle. So that's probably something that I haven't shown you before. And then it just kind of blends in. It's not easy. I'll get this side too. You won't be able to probably see it over here as well, but they've got that muscle, and here it is. And then I'll just press and just kind of feel what's happening, and it's all in good shape. It's not stressed in any way. Okay, and you can rock the shoulders sometimes if you want to. Just take a little rocking action. And then get into the neck. It's nice to go up to the base of the skull. And again, do not push in the center of the vertebrae, especially up there high. It's not a good idea. It's not very comfortable either. And then what I like to do with the neck is give it a stretch, which is a subtle stretch. So it's just a stretch where I'm actually getting into the dural tube and allowing the dural tube to actually make the stretch down to the sacrum. And you can feel that's very, very relaxing. And you have to access the dural tube. I get there between the atlas and the occiput. And as those muscles let me in deeper, I can access that tube a little bit better. Some of it is energetic. Sometimes you can actually get on it, depending on how well you can convince the muscle to let go that deep. And then with the other hand, I'm just doing stretching of the fascia down the back. So I'm stretching deep inside to the dural tube and stretching the fascia that runs down the vertebrae. And actually what I'm feeling is some head movement in the bones. So that is opening up a lot of things. See, this is the part of subtle anatomy that very few people really understand this at this point. Even therapists don't really get it yet. But it is vitally important to start to take your training in that direction. That's where you get a much more efficient result in what you're doing, is if you can learn and address that. I'm just checking the bone, see how that is. Okay, we're not going to go too much into the face today. I'm going to go under the jawline. Now there's also a lymph chain under the jawline, and here you can also get into the bottom part of the mouth, into where the tongue, things under the tongue are attached, and you can go kind of deep in there if it's allowing you to do that, but don't force yourself in. These are delicate areas. I'm just, I'd like to do a lot of little circular motions here. And there's things that you'll feel in the neck. Sometimes you'll feel lymph nodes that are full, and you can just drain them. To drain a lymph node, you need to know the direction of drainage, and you need to know how to skin stretch in order to get the fluid to move on its own, because there is no pump with the lymphatic system. And just work around through there. You can even drain a little bit. So that's just getting this upper part of the body, the neck, the upper part of the back, the upper part of the neck, or the upper part of the chest, a little more opened up and relaxed. Now, as far as the shoulders go, when we are rounding forward, it's all from the scapula. We have that little acromion clavicular joint, and then we're going to talk now about how to get these shoulders to begin to pull back. And it comes with posture, but you also, when you're working on it, this is a really interesting technique, and it takes some time to learn. And this is a different angle than I'm doing it, but I know what directions I need to push, so I'm going to do it from here. But in the courses that I teach, I show it that is much easier to be able to get, and it really probably gives you a little bit better result as well. So the shoulder is got to, in order for the shoulder to be able to drop back so that you're standing straight with your shoulders, you want to remember that it's only connected here, so there's a lot of muscles that are pulling forward as we have bad posture, leaning forward. So the thing to do is that to work on the scapula and have the scapula begin to loosen so that it's pulling down towards the hips. And so as that scapula is being urged down, you have to let go of the tension spots and allow it to go down on its own. You'll feel a lot of fascia letting go. You'll feel some muscles changing position, all of that. And then you can take the arm and position it where you need to on the shoulder, and keep pulling that down little by little. And I can feel it opening. I can feel it wanting to open up and fall back into its proper alignment. Of course, to do that also, you need to have the abdominals and the low back in a good position. That's why it's important to try to sit on the sit bones. It's hard to do because we go to the lines of the least resistance, and that makes it hard. But what I'm feeling is a lot of activity, that this shoulder doesn't want to lean forward. It wants to really go into a different position. And so you can feel that opening up. And I'm still stretching the scapula. And what I do is I apply some energy as well, waves of little energy. And then you can let that shoulder come more, and now I'm working this up and the other one going in the downward direction. But this really does take some time because there's a lot of muscle there. And I don't know if Karina can feel some of that small stuff, but there's a lot of muscle letting go. And this is something that's not really addressed in regular massage therapy, because it's getting more into the structure, and it's disappointing at times to see that when people are doing leg stretches or something for somebody, that they're so unaware of the postural alignment, and they'll pull the knee up, or they'll be unaware that there's certain muscles that might be super tight and you shouldn't push into it. So there's a lot of gaps in the training right now, and the scapula is just going absolutely crazy right now. It's just jumping around and finding a new position, because it really wants to be flatter. And now I'm going to put a little bit more energy into it, and I'm not really forcing anything, but I'm putting a little bit more firmness on it. And that is, it's just firm enough to where the body isn't pushing me away, but it's inviting me in a little deeper, and it's active in the way it should be active when you know when it's making the changes. There's a difference between the kind of movement that's making changes and the kind of movement that's defending itself, tightening up and becoming more tense, more stressed, a lot more resistance, because it's actually going to be protecting the body by doing that tenseness. And that's what happens when you move too fast in this, or too deep in this, too quickly. And then you can just hold that a little longer. Now, because I'm in this position, I'm going to slide my hand out sideways. And you might be able to see how this shoulder has dropped from when we started. And I could probably get it to drop a little bit more, but I would have to go to a different position, which I think I'll do, and give you an idea. So you want to put the arm up here. Now I'm going to get back down under to the scapula, and just ask her to lift just a little so I can, yeah. Now the scapula should fit in your hand, just kind of the way the sacrum fits in your hand. And this gives it a little lift. Now I'm going to do the same kind of stretching thing, but this is a much more efficient way to do it, because the hands are when they move out, for the backhand moves away, it's going to be moving in the position to get that scapula to follow it. Now I'm just going to let the scapula unwind a little more. It's unwound itself quite a bit, but it's going into a little bit more unwinding. And then you could just feel what's happening here. Now I'm putting very light pressure to urge this positioning to come up and back. And the two together, it's going to make the difference. And I'm not going to hold it as long as I probably need to for a matter of time, but as soon as it softens a little bit more on the inside of that scapula and also underneath the scapula, because I'm right on the edge, a little bit underneath the scapula, at least energetically I am. I'm right on the edge physically. Now what you do here is you're going to kind of lift and pull, and it's kind of a quick action, but because everything has been already softened and ready for that, it's more of an abrupt kind of action, but it's going to be okay because everything is in a different position. It's not doing it like being, like cold muscles. The muscles are already trying to change. So you just wait until it kind of tells you it's ready. And then you just kind of bring that up and back. And then the shoulder is open here, and then you can open that there. Now this when it's done a few times with people, and there's also a strengthening of the low back, you'll notice that this eventually will feel really, really different. So I think that that's a pretty good example of what can happen. It's pretty good. It's actually about the right positioning. The shoulder does always kind of look a little rounded forward just in position because we work our arms more going front than back. And then of course I'm going to just skip the other part that I did and do the other side. So you can get an idea from that angle. And so this is going to be up and under. And then you want to be sure that your hand is placed properly on that scapula. Wait, that scapula's here. Okay, there we go. And we're going to hold that. Now this scapula feels a little different because I worked the other one already a different way, which softened it up. So now it's going to take a little bit of time to do, but it is the left-hand side. So you just give that little bit of traction, and there you just give a little bit of pressure to let the shoulder just open up. And then you give traction to the scapula. And you just wait on it. A lot of waiting. They say that patience isn't just learning how to wait, it's learning how to wait with the right attitude. So that's kind of a fun little saying to think about, that you want to enjoy the wait. Now what I'm noticing here, because this shoulder wasn't worked and there's a bigger gap, a bigger opening between the neck and the shoulder. This one is, like the shoulder is up more, so it's smaller. So we want to get them even. And that oftentimes will be also with the alignment of the sternoclavicular joint. Okay. I'm going to do this a little premature, so it might not be quite as full as it could be, but it's getting there. And her body is very used to my hands, so it responds quickly. Sometimes if you're working on somebody that you don't know very well or they're new, it takes longer because there's a trust issue that kind of happens at a subconscious level. And oftentimes people on the table are a little guarded until they get into that. Now this is going to be, figure how to get my body here. Okay. There we go. Now that opened up the neck. This shoulder looks like it's a little more pressed in. So working it from the top part really did make a change in the shoulder. So I'm just kind of, this is much better. It's much more open than it was. And this is much more open. And you can see it's subtle, but it's significant. That's going to open that up, and you're going to feel much better standing. The lungs are more open. And then you can also check. I find that the sacrum and the sternoclavicular joint has a big play with each other as well. So I'm oftentimes at both the sacrum and these joints here, the sternoclaviculars. And I'm finding that they oftentimes do a dance together to kind of align. This is probably aligning much more the rib cage, but the rib cage does connect into the back, and so then the back would be connecting and influencing down to the sacrum. So it's interesting, it's fun, it's a good thing to know. It's nice to see people change, and I can actually feel her energy shifting as well. It shifts differently when it's into cranial work, but the energy is changing. And that feels good. And that feels pretty good. Okay, her arm can go down. And now I'm going to come back up to the neck. And then just give it a little stretch there. You have to also develop what you see. You have to be able to see subtlety. Because a lot of times it doesn't look like a lot of change, but when you can see the subtlety of it, especially if you've felt the subtlety and the change. Because a lot of people say, well, I don't see any difference and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, there is change happening. It's just an insensitivity to the body and probably a little bit of lack of understanding of exactly how this stuff works, which we haven't been taught, so we can only learn it from here and not worry about it if we don't know it. Just begin to learn things that are outside of the box. And I'm just stretching the neck now, pulling on that fascia as well as the dural tube, and everything feels nice and clean, nice and pliable. So now I like to check everything from the neck and the head, and I'm going to just check the sphenoid bone just because I want to get an idea of how balanced she is there at the fulcrum. And it's pretty balanced. There's a little bit of off, but it's not enough to, at least at this point, it's correcting. So yeah, it's correcting itself because of the muscles and probably the sternoclavicular changes that happened there. Now it's actually balanced quite well. There is a little bit of issue with the, so we can do that and get it, there we go. Yeah, there's a little bit of a shear happening, but it's still very much in alignment, so, but there's just a little tiny bit of shear. I think that will correct in the next 48 hours. Yeah, the rhythm is good. Rhythm is good, feels good. So there's a little bit of work that I showed you about the shoulders, the front side of the shoulders, and the importance of the clavicle and the sternum, but particularly the joint here. So it's something else to consider, something else to pay attention to, and understand that it all has to do with the subtle alignment of the body. And if any of you are interested in learning more, I do teach this, and it'll be listed below. I want to thank you all very much for watching, for viewing. Please give me a like, give me a comment, pass this around, subscribe, and we shall see you next time. I want to invite you to explore my course, The Foundations of Subtle Alignment. It is going to take you beyond the work of massage therapy. It will take you into the world of the subtle anatomy. Misalignment of the subtle structures is often the root cause of chronic pain, injuries, and chronically high levels of stress hormones. In this course, you will learn about the subtle anatomy and a protocol for assessing and aligning the subtle structures.